Burnjolf Verts. Hi, Owen. How different is the JW Bible compared to the Bible? Not that different. It's basically exactly the same, except they inserted the name Jehovah everywhere when it doesn't belong there. Like, the New Testament never uses the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, the 4 letters that represent God's name. At no point does it ever use the Tetragrammaton. It uses the word Kyrios more often than not to refer to God, which is just the Greek word for God. I think that's how it's pronounced and spelled or whatever. But the Old Testament doesn't even use the name Jehovah. The Old Testament uses the Tetragrammaton, YHWH. Anyways, yeah, those are really the primary differences, but in a couple of places, they have changed words. Like, for example, in the original Bible, or in the actual Bible, this is worth going down the rabbit hole. Let me just talk about this real quick. Here's one example of Jehovah's Witnesses basically bootstrapping their beliefs into their Bible, right? So they start with beliefs. The United Nations is the beast in Revelations. And they rewrite their Bible to back up that already existing idea. In programming, we call that bootstrapping an idea, where I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, the actual verse in the King James Version says, "And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition." So Jehovah's Witnesses believed that the beast in Revelation was the United Nations, right? And their premise for that belief is that Revelation 17:11 says the scarlet-colored beast springs from or owes its existence to other ruling forces. Now, that could very obviously apply to the United Nations, if that's what it actually said. But they changed that word from the original, which was, "and is of the 7." They changed it from that to "springs from the 7." It's one word that changed. But it changes the entire meaning and context and backs up their already existing beliefs about the United Nations being the great beast of the book of Revelations. In the interlinear version of the Bible, the actual literal word-for-word translation, here's what that verse says. "And the beast which was and not is also himself an 8th, is and of the 7, is and into destruction goes." So it says it is of the 7. There are a million different ways that the great beast could be some other country, right? Like, maybe it's a British colony. Maybe it's a territory of the United States or a state or something. But they change, there are a billion possible interpretations for "it is of the 7" rather than "it springs from the 7." By using the term "springs from," it's directly implying that it's the United Nations, basically. So that's just one example of little itty-bitty ways in which the Jehovah's Witness Bible is altered. Just 1 or 2 words. And it changes everything about the meaning, the context of verses. Would a normal reader come to the same conclusions as a Jehovah's Witness? Probably not. Because those verses are still already very cryptic and don't really make sense outside the context of that Jehovah's Witnesses provide. But the point is, don't trust the Jehovah's Witness Bible. They have notoriously changed it, altered it just a little bit to support their already existing ideas. So hopefully that answered the question.